Welcome to First Responder Financial Freedom Podcast. We talk to first responders all over the nation who are investing and working on businesses outside their first responder jobs. Our goal is to motivate and educate each other and help provide a better financial understanding for a better future. Now here are your hosts, Mike Webb, Tyler Thrush, and Aaron Foster.
Hey guys, we're back. First Responder Financial Freedom, your normal Tyler, Mike, and Aaron. And then we've got Faisal today, Faisal Morsi with Pinpoint Skip. He is somebody who does the data analyst, and then he moved on to skip tracing. So I'm going to let him kind of do his intro because he's got a lot of information out there that he can help grow our business and find deals potentially off market. So thank you for hopping on. I know this is the last minute. You did Ian's podcast, and I appreciate you hopping on with ours. So give me a little background. Like, where did you start pre-skip tracing or pre-pinpoint?
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me. So I was a data analyst for 6 years before jumping into real estate full-time. Basically, it was a great career. I just didn't want to do it the rest of my career. So started looking into other avenues. Basically, the way I learned was podcasts, and just YouTube. And I was driving down to DC. So it was an hour commute each way. And I basically just used that commute to learn from other people's podcasts, bigger pockets. And so I flipped my first place back in 2018. And basically it was a slight disaster. Should have taken me 6 months, took me 14 months. And so I decided to take a little break. So basically what I was doing in my previous job was I worked for a software company. It was a CRM for lawyers. And so they would store all of their case information in software, and they would come to me, basically try to come up with reports to run their businesses based on the data that was in the CRM. Because that's kind of how my mind works is the data field. When I went into real estate full time, that's kind of in the back of my mind how my brain operates. So it kind of led to this evolution. So fast forward after that failed flip, found out that we were pregnant with my first son, decided to start looking into buying rentals. Bought what would have been my first rental at the beginning of COVID. Went over budget on that, wouldn't have had enough money to burr out of it. And so ended up selling it, and I made $50,000 on it. 2 months later, I lost my job, which was the best thing that's ever happened to me, and decided to go all in on real estate investing, more specifically wholesaling business. So I spent $20,000 or $30,000 on data and systems. And after a couple months, just realizing that there had to be a better way. So went down the rabbit hole of trying to find better data providers with the eventual goal of selling that data. And I found a couple in the summer of 21 once I started using it in my business blew up. So from there, I wanted to see if the proof of concept was there, if other investors could get deals from my data. And so I started selling that data to friends of mine in my masterminds. And once they were able to get deals from it too, that's when I started Pinpoint Skip.
So what is a data analyst?
Yeah, so basically, I was basically just a numbers cruncher, just someone who was able. So I learned a computer programming language called SQL, which is basically you're able to go into a database and pull out the relevant data points to make it so instead of looking at thousands of data points, you're only looking at the relevant ones and just make it into readable form or looking at the proper KPIs, basically.
As you mentioned, a CRM. So anybody who's listening, CRM is customer relationship management. So there's a whole bunch of CRMs out there. And the software that you said you spent about $20,000 or $30,000 on, that's your baby. That's something you created, this proprietary software, right?
No. So when I was starting out wholesaling, I basically pulled a bunch of lists from PropStream, Batch, and ListSource. And I was spending anywhere from 15 to 25 cents a record. And because, I didn't really know what I didn't know, it's just people were teaching me, and then I was also trying to learn on my own, and that's I was just following the information that was out there and blindly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know we've touched base on some of those like Batch and PropStream and whatnot. for those of you that haven't heard of those are pretty much off the shelf, for lack of a better term, providers of data. Now, from what I gather, most of those types of platforms are pretty much pulling data from one of the few big data aggregators out there, correct? Like there's only so many wells that they can pull from, right? And these places just kind of make it like served up on a silver platter and a nice user interface, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of them have other like components to their software, like PropStream, has a bunch of like list information and property information that you could pull if you're like trying to like pull comps and stuff like that. And then with Batch, you can text, and I think now they have like a dialer built in as well. Whereas with Pinpoint, it's just the data and just the list.
Yeah, so just in case some of that was a little foreign to some folks, he's saying basically you got the data right there all within like, think about it like iTunes. You can sit there and find the song, and then you can also hit dial, which a dialer basically will sit there and just take like 5 phone numbers for these records, dial all 5, whoever picks up, boom, that's who they talk to, dumps the other 4. Or he also said texting. So like if you ever get a text message like, hey, I want to buy your house at 122 Howard Street, you're like, what the heck? That's what you can basically listen to search the song, listen to the song, and make a playlist with the song all from the same interface. That's what basically this system does, just with trying to find deals, right?
So exactly. I had you pulled a list for me, and I'm actually just going to read off like some of the information that's on there, and we'll kind of break it down after that. It's a lot of information, so bear with me. You have the list type, which could be early probate, vacancy, divorce. It could be a number of things, and I like niche stuff. So we'll go over different types of lists in a minute. Then you have the name of the owner, mailing address, the property address of what they have. Let's see, you have the second owners, their information, their addresses, subdivision names, land acreage, square footage, land value, legal descriptions, bedrooms, bathrooms, square feet, year bill, kind estimate, tax assessed value, equity percentage, how much equity they have in the property, years of ownership, last market date, last market sale, last warranty deed type, so like special warranty or warranty, ownership rights, relationships, previous owners, execution, executor, personal, lenders, corporate owners, are they yes or no, trustee owner, yes or no, total mortgage, what kind of loan type, conventional, the interest rate, the mortgage interest rate, is it adjustable or is it fixed? Owner occupied or absentee, has never been sold, potential absentee. There's a,
like I'm 1,000 data points.
Yeah. That's only about half of this whole list. But it has their phone numbers on here, the address. Like the amount of information that he provides in his list is extensive, and it's good because everybody's going to look at data a different way and try to analyze it to see if they can find the best option to go after these properties. So,
well, it probably depends on what your end goal is too. If your goal is to search for subject to townhouses in a given neighborhood, so a lot of that data means nothing, right? Because if you only want to buy something that has a little bit of equity and a mortgage rate between 4% and 6% built after 1990, you don't really care whether it's owned by this person or owner occupied. You're just looking at those particular data points, right?
Yeah, so we actually have a subject to list that we've created specifically for people who are trying to do creative financing. And you're right. I mean, we try to give as much information as we can, knowing that each investor, has different criteria and basically buy boxes. And so, yeah, for someone who's trying to do creative financing, they have different buy box than someone who's looking to flip and needs that equity. And then also with like buy and hold investors as well. So, there's a bunch of different, stuff in there that it's a little overkill and could be overwhelming if you've never done it before, but we try to make it as easy as possible. One of the things that I've created for people who have never done this before and don't know how to do a cash offer is there's a box we've created using AI called Blind Offer. I initially created for my realtor clients who don't know how to analyze a cash deal, but it also works if you're a newbie as well.
So speaking of the sub two, I don't mean to cut you off real quick because I want to touch on the point. I like networking. So like earlier, my buddy Thomas O'Brien, that we all know, he called me. He was like, "Hey man, I'm looking for this information, sub two, blah, 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 blah." I was like, "Oh, I just pulled a list and I sent him the list that you sent me." And I was like, "This is the kind of information he's providing." So I think y'all had a conversation like 2 hours ago. Is that right?
Yeah. Good guy.
Yeah, I like Tommy. So what I just want to say, like, he can pinpoint whatever focus you want to be at, whether it be buy and hold, rental, flip, wholesale, whatever. Like, you can kind of break these records down to fit whatever niche you're going to be into. Sorry, Tyler, go ahead.
No, you're fine. I was going to say a lot of this is overwhelming for somebody who's never done this, right? They just heard all the data points. They heard all the different types of lists. The biggest thing is to start with the end in mind and think, what am I trying to do when I'm trying to acquire properties? Am I trying to acquire a rental, a flip, or a wholesale deal? And then look at the pre-configured lists on a site like yourself and just stick with one. Don't try to be like, oh, I can do this, I can do that. Pick one, get really good at it, understand your buy box, and then you'll start to see a lot of certain traits. Like for me, I'm sure Mike does the same thing now, and Aaron, I know what my buy box is. I know what my most frequent sellers are. I know what their most frequent point of distress is. So I actually like to go out and get the data directly from the recorder's office and then go and upload that into a skip tracing company, have all that skipped, and then mark it from that point. If you were going to give advice to a brand new investor who's never done a deal out of all of those lists, and I know it changes, but depending on where you're at, what do you think their highest likelihood of success would be? What list should they be targeting?
The two that I recommend the most are the niche lists and the motivated AF. Niche lists are just a bunch of smaller lists. And Mike, yeah, you're smiling. It's what you think it is. And so, yeah, the niche lists are just the smaller lists that we used to have separated, but combined onto one. So like pre-foreclosure, early probate, someone who have assigned an executor to their estate before they pass away. And then also includes vacants, any judgments or liens, and I think like tax delinquents as well. And then motivated AF is pretty much a compilation of like our best performing lists. So that way you don't have to overthink which lists are the best, and you just target that. But when first starting out, I always tell people just focus on one specific zip code or area that you're super familiar with, whether it's where you live or, like an area that you grew up, because most of the time you understand the dynamics of the neighborhoods or the blocks, and it's easy for you to like build rapport with people in an area that like you grew up with.
I don't think some people can probably appreciate how awesome that is unless you were one of those dudes that had like 17 Excel files from ListSource and you were trying to like manually stack this back in the day. Like that was a huge pain in the ass. Like I can't emphasize how big of a pain it was for me to sit there and like, all right, I got this list. I'm trying to like overlay them. And like, I'm not a data analyst. So I'm sitting there trying to just fumble my way through it. Then you get this giant stack of returned mail, which admittedly for the first several years, I just took it and threw it right in the trash can. And guess what? Most other investors did the same thing. But now when that stuff comes back, you can sit there and skip trace that, try and get other contact information for those folks, remove it from your list so you're not mailing to it again. You're calling them, texting them, emailing them, whatever. I've Facebook friend requested people. It doesn't matter, And it's like, man, if you realize like how they just took that learning curve, which takes years and also lots of money, relatively speaking, to go through all that data. Cause you said what, 15, 20 cents a record. I don't know what I was paying with ListSource, but I had like one of those managed accounts and you could pull like, I forget how many thousand records at a time, but the long and short of it was you were spending a couple $1,000s every time you sent mail between data and the actual mailing, which has gone up significantly in the last 10 years. How much does it cost to pull a list like that? Or I know that's a very big question with a lot of components, but like in general, what does it cost to pull a list?
Yeah,
like that motivated as AF list.
Yeah, it's 8 cents a record, and our lists come about 90% skip traced. And so about 90% of them are going to come with the phone numbers, whereas all of them are going to come with the property addresses. So if you're mailing them, it's going to have the information on it. And then minimum is 1,000 records, so $80.
So
okay. That's like stupid cheap. So like anybody listening, if you're not going to shell out $100 for this, like you're probably not going to take this business seriously, but literally for $100, you could get a list of 1,000 names and just literally pick up your phone. You don't need a dialer. You don't need a CRM. You can literally just start hammering away and highlight the ones you get a hold of or something and redline
like
out the people that have sold.
The list that I just read off of, like those are the data points that you're getting with the 8 cents per lead. So like you get a whole lot of information.
Yeah, that
I feel like I'm selling for you. Like I feel like this is like we're marketing for you. This is great.
It sells itself, man.
I thought I was recording a podcast, not becoming a customer, but here I am. I'm just
commercial.
Like, but seriously, like 1,000 records. Statistically speaking, there's a deal in there. I mean, and if you can get a cost per acquisition for $100, that is freaking insanely cheap. I don't know anybody that has cost per acquisition at $100. Try like 3,000 per contract, maybe more.
Right now we're averaging between 2,500 and 3,500.
Yeah, so right there, $3,000. I mean, that's what you can expect to spend to get a deal. Most of the time is about $3,000. Now, every now and then, like Aaron said, he likes to network. Like you might have one fall in your lap from a referral, but that's not too scalable.
Yeah, it's not repeatable. Or it is, it's just hard to do it.
It is, but it's so like as somebody that runs a meetup and all that, like I definitely have deals given to me where my cost per acquisition theoretically is zero, even though it's time investment and all this other stuff. Like you can't really quantify. It's very difficult to build a business based off just that. Can you do it? I'm sure you can. I just haven't found the way. So my point is that sounds really inexpensive for the amount of value you're providing.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tyler.
No, it was going to go to your point, Mike. So what Mike was saying is he got all this return mail. Everybody always threw it away. And I just wanted to highlight why it's so important. You're getting mail back indicating that the people that you're trying to market to are not able to be reached by mail. So then now you pair this with a service like Pinpoint and you get their contact information. And this is important for two reasons. A, direct mail is the path of least resistance, right? You don't have to call anybody. You don't have to text anybody. You don't have to initiate a conversation, which is why a lot of people do it. The second thing is once they get the return mail back, they're not going to take the time to skip trace it more often than not. Now, maybe now with a lot of the services they will, but back like when Mike was talking about when we were first learning how to list stack and stuff like that, it never happened. So if you spend that $80 to get all that return mail skipped, now you have a list where people can't reach them via mail, which is a bigger barrier to entry. You can go after them. And a lot of them, when they have 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers, same thing. People will call the first number on the list. They don't get an answer or it's a wrong number. They move on to the next name. But I know a lot of people, and I'm thinking of Larry Higgins, Mike, where they would go down the list over and over and over. And dude, if you can get a hold of somebody that nobody else can, your profit margin instantly goes up. So that's all I wanted to say was just so they understood what you were referring to is that the mail that we used to throw away was probably the most valuable mail that we had.
Yeah. I try not to think about it.
So Faisal, one thing I think is cool about your setup is that you actually don't mail. Is that right?
Yeah, I used to. And I used to throw the mail away too, and it would come back to me.
Dude.
Guilty too, I know. I don't want to talk about it either. But no, strictly cold calling. I've tried mail, I've tried texting, but cold calling has just been had the highest ROI for us. And so I'm guilty of trying to text because I hear other people having success with it with our list, and I'm like, all right, maybe we should try it again. But now, once I started actually focusing, double down on the cold callers, that's when I had the best success. And then any of your clients who want that referral for the cold calling company, they can reach out to me directly, and I'll give them the ones that I'm using at the time. Because I'm constantly even just testing new cold calling companies. I've tested probably at this point 7 or 8 different cold calling companies, and the one that I use has been the best as far as the quantity and quality of the leads. But we're still closing 1 in 50 leads that are coming in. It's just nobody likes cold calling. I hate it, so that's why I outsource that.
So you're outsourcing. It's kind of a unique situation. So anytime you hear somebody this from a cold call center, you kind of know what is this? This is going to be annoying. I don't want to talk to them. So you use somebody, if I remember correctly, Costa Rica is one of them, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And what was the other one?
So my cold callers are from Costa Rica, and then I had a follow-up specialist in Nicaragua, and now my follow-up specialist is in Egypt. But I always found that they work better than the ones in like Philippines and like Pakistan because their accents are Spanish, and so people tend to think that they're immigrants rather than knowing that they're calling from like a cold calling center from overseas.
I was watching some video podcast, something a while ago, and it was saying how people are starting to move towards hiring somebody from England, Scotland, Ireland, because the accent is more recognizable or relatable, I think it was. So they've started going towards a certain accent because people are more in tune with that. I thought it was really kind of cool. It's one of those like over analytic things, but I thought it was kind of cool to hear like it actually has an impact on your marketing scheme.
Yeah, sounds
absolutely.
classy.
What'd you say, Mike?
I said, it sounds classy. I remember whenever I was using Fiverr and stuff a lot, I was trying to find somebody to record. I forget what it was, but you could pay somebody on Fiverr to record your voicemail in an English accent. I was like, man, there's no shortage of hustles around here, you know? But yeah, the whole overseas call center thing is tough. Like, so for our storage business, we were using a call center that was based out of the States, but they were basically subbing out the work to people overseas. And man, it was just brutal. And so it wasn't going well. So we switched to where we have a call center now that's based in the States. And most of the folks that do the actual answering are like down south. So they just have that like good old like welcome to Cracker Barrel sound. And it's friggin' great. Like we've seen our close rate, like they're selling over the phone. Whereas before it was just merely a customer like service type call center. Now they're closing sales, which is, man, it's a big difference. Is it more expensive? Sure is. But they're actually closing sales, which the other place was costing me sales. So you get what you pay for is what I've found when it comes to the whole call center thing.
And the three ways that you try to get a hold of somebody is generally going to be mailers, texting, or calling. And Tyler, you want to jump in and say something? I'm stepped on you.
No, you're good. I was just going to say what Mike just mentioned, like data quality is everything, right? Like a lot of people go search for the cheapest data that they possibly can find in order to make these phone calls and mail. And it's kind of backwards if you think about it. Like, let me go get the most inconsistent and unreliable data to spend thousands of dollars in marketing or time on, you know, in the hopes that I can acquire a deal.
And then bitch when it doesn't work.
Yeah. Is
The
that
other
one
way
of your
of-
major objections when people call you? Faisal, yeah.
Say it again. I'm sorry.
Is that one of your major objections? I know people in real estate investing are traditionally very cheap. Do they ever balk at the 8 cents?
So we have 2 tiers of data. So like in the data business, tier 1 data is most accurate. I can get that for 12 cents a record and includes email address. That's up to 95% accurate. Our data is 8 cents a record, and it's tier 2 data. It's 85 to 90% accurate. It does not include email addresses. So when I was trying to figure out who, basically the data provider was going to be to skip trace through, that's what I was looking at. So I was trying to figure out how I can add the most value to clients who are doing, a lot of volume. And so I can get the tier 1 data. You just have to email it to us directly instead of going through the website. And you can just email us at info@pinpointskip.com, and I'll get you the better data. But I found like that 5% delta wasn't worth the 50% upcharge that I would have to charge people.
So one of the things I also want to mention is, so like when I had him pull this list for me, it's very targeted because in 5 years, I'm probably going to move to this area. So I want to start investing out there. There's supposed to be an approximate 110% growth rate over the next 10 years there. So if I can get my foot in the door before I move out there, then it's going to have the appreciation value. So that's kind of why I'm looking at that area. But where I'm at now, I'm in College Park by University of Maryland. The FBI Center, their FBI said that they're moving to the College Park area. And then the new Treasury printing facility is also coming to the area right down the street. So between the two of them, we're going to get 10 to 15,000 workers in the area in the next 10 years. Now, it's not a funded project yet, but I'm very targeted and I want to be in this area. So I asked Faisal to run me a list of this area because then if I don't want to do cold calling, if I don't want to do calls and texts, then I can get door hangers. I think I have them in here somewhere, where if he has the list for me, I can go to every single door and hang it. Or I can hire a college kid to come and do it. Or I can hire somebody who needs a job for $10 an hour to go walk around and hang the door hangers. So there's multiple ways you can get touches from these lists to get leads. It's just what works best, I don't know. And to his point, 85 to 90% accuracy is a huge it's a huge plus in this market. And a lot of these old data sources, they would sell you old lists. So like the lists are not up to date. So you've already had, 10, 15, 20 other people market to these lists, and they're kind of overwhelmed and like, well, it's kind of too late for this one. So if you can get the fresh stuff, that's kind of what I like. So like me, I always like tax liens, because tax liens are actively being processed, because every year they're going to be fresh and new. So the fact that he can do that as well is also a big thing, especially in the area that we dabble in. I don't go up to his area. He's up in the Pasadena, Anne Arundel, Baltimore, Carroll area, and I'm more of like the Southern Maryland, PG, DC area. So it's kind of interesting to see how different maneuvers work for different areas. Like sometimes text works better, sometimes mailers work better, sometimes bandit signs work better. But Mike used to do. Go ahead.
I was going to say people respond to different like marketing channels differently. So same person that's answering a landline isn't necessarily going to answer a text, and they're probably not the same person that's going to open a letter or call back a postcard. So
that's a very valid point. So like I personally don't listen to virtually any voicemail. That if you leave me a voicemail, my voicemail literally says, "Don't leave me a voicemail, just text me." And I also don't really check my mail. My wife usually does that. So, but to your point, there's different ways to get a hold of folks. Like I just bought a storage facility earlier this year where the guy has a cell phone. He doesn't do email. He doesn't listen to voicemail. He doesn't text. I sent him a letter. He opened it. He called me, like we bought it. So it's like, you have to think about your avatar. If you're trying to buy these houses in a neighborhood where they've lived in the house for 50 years and the husband died, the wife still owns it, and she's one of those like still puts on her Sunday best to go to church and reads the newspaper, like she's probably not going to respond super well to a cold call or text message. Now, my grandfather had a Facebook page whenever he died in his 90s. So there is a chance, right? But chances are they're going to be more receptive to a letter or a mailer, where somebody like us, we may be like, oh, text message, oh, I'll respond to that, versus a piece of mail. I'm probably never even going to see it. So anyways, think with the end in mind. And somebody asked about QR codes. What is QR codes? I feel like they were on their way. Matter of fact, here's one right here. During COVID, like they definitely got a bump. Like, do you see much usage of these within what you do, or is that?
I just do it on my my business cards. They can there's a QR code for them to link straight to my Calendly, and then the other side has a QR code for the website. But other than that.
I was putting it on my mailer, so like, and I actually had to put, because people didn't know what it was. I was like, aim your phone at this. That's what I said, like above the QR code, and it took you right to a unlisted YouTube video with me talking. So it's kind of like the bomb thing they used to do. I don't know if they still do it, but I know that was like real popular there for a while. Same thing. And I could kind of unscientifically get the results of it because it's an unlisted YouTube video. I could see how many plays it had versus how many pieces of mail I was sending out. And I would say it was not very well watched. So it's like, I think I had like 400 views on it, but that was after like sending out God knows how many mailers, so I didn't see a big success with it. So,
Faisal, you also do your own flipping too now. Like you had the rough patch the first time, the first deal you did. It was a big learning experience, but now you're doing stuff fairly regularly. I guess I see you just posted the one in Pasadena, which anybody listening, that's kind of between Annapolis and Baltimore. You're getting 1 out of 50 leads. Is that what I remember correctly?
Yeah. So the way my company's set up is we have the 2 cold callers in Costa Rica. They funnel leads to my CRM. I use Podio for my CRM, and I recommend Podio to all my clients starting off because it's free at first. And then after 100 leads, it's like $25 a month. So, it's a cheap entry point. And then from there, we have the follow-up specialist in Egypt. We're doing about we'll say 2 to 4 deals, contracts a month with a 50% contract fallout rate. And then from there, I'm just cherry picking the best deals and then wholesaling off the rest, depending on like my bandwidth, how much capital I have, and if how busy my crews are.
So what made you transition from the wholesaling aspect to the flipping, investing, buying, and holding aspect of it?
When you're direct to seller, you get essentially the best deals. And I think I wholesaled a deal that it was just like a super light rehab that an investor of mine made I think it was like $50,000 in like 2 or 3 months, and I made like a $10,000 wholesale fee. It was a decent spread at the beginning, which the capital helped. But when I looked at what he did, that pretty much became my new model. Like I pretty much just wholesale everything now. Just try to be in and out, like rehabs, $20,000 or less, like lipstick on a pig rehab. Because that first one probably traumatized me a little bit. I don't like doing full rehabs anymore. So that's pretty much like my standard, is if I can get in and out of it quick for as little money as possible.
What's a wholesale? I know we've kind of briefly touched on that.
So wholesale is basically when instead of wholesaling it to someone and making that assignment fee, you're actually purchasing it and then either cleaning it out or just doing like a light rehab and then listing it on the retail market. So that's where it's like a wholesale / retail. And typically I try to do it as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I think a lot of times the gut reaction is like, I need to buy it, rehab it, grant it, blah, blah, blah. There's literally, I've done it, but there's somebody I know that just closed one this week. They bought it, they cleaned it out. So like the belongings that were left, and then cleaned it as in like, Mr. Clean, Clorox wipes cleaned it, and then relisted it, put it, like, I think they was supposed to sell for like $435. They listed it at like $425, multiple offers. So they are in essence getting the rehab profits without doing a full blown rehab where you have a lot more variables. They went in, cleaned it out, cleaned it, changed the light bulbs, listed. It's like, you don't have to overthink it. And I know there's a lot of people that have made a model off of that. And then they were, selling them to the iBuyers and all that stuff. But like, myself included, it's easy to be like, oh, I bought this, I got to do a full-blown rehab on it, where basically wholetailing is a super light cosmetic rehab maybe, or just clean it out. So
yeah, because inventory is the way it is, we have that I guess the affordability to do that, and so I just try to remodel it or rehab it, clean it out, so and price it at the bottom of the market, where essentially first-time home buyers, they're priced out of these, properties. Whereas like if you can give them like a property that may need a bathroom remodeled or something down the road, they'll happily go.
It's not overwhelming to them.
Exactly.
It's not like it needs full. It's not like scary. It's like cosmetically, and what we just talked about at the beginning was like that missing middle. Like we have people that are still buying houses, that are still buying the top end properties, and then you got the people that are pretty much always going to be in that renter's market. But the people in the middle, they've been having a struggle for years and years and years. They might be willing to overlook the fact the bathroom is a little bit dated. It's in their price point, it's in the school district they want, and it's livable. Boom. So
yeah, exactly.
One of the things I used to see during like the COVID time, when rates were super low and everybody was buying anything, was the banks that had been holding on to some of these properties, they would take the price and deduct what they estimated the rehab to be and selling it for that. And it's still going over market value. So if the market value of the house was $500,000 and it needed $50,000 in work, they were listing it at $450 and then still getting over the $500,000. And that's still happening to a degree, which is kind of surprising because of the interest rates. But it's still popular to do, and banks are still doing it, and people are still doing it. Obviously, with his thing. Are you actually? Tyler has 2 questions lined up. I'm gonna let him ask those, and I'll jump back in.
So we have a lot of people in the group that are becoming agents, right? And so my thought is, how does skip tracing specifically pertain to agents? And does the list or the strategy change as far as what they're looking to do?
No, not at all. So, all right. So I'm talking directly to agents here. So the number one question that I get from agents are your lists scrubbed against the DNC? We do not scrub against the DNC list because of the fact that when we were comparing our lists with the DNC and the property addresses, about 20% of them weren't correct and they weren't lining up. So we figured that's a huge difference between the people that are missing out on our calls that could use our help. And so we do not scrub against the DNC. The cold calling company that I use, they do sometimes, but for some reason, I don't know why, but some people, they'll still get calls and say like, we're on the DNC list, and we just say, okay, I'm sorry. And we don't call them back. I had a guy in our system who cold calling company called them. He was interested. We called them, had a conversation with him. He wasn't interested. Next time we called him, he said he was on the DNC list. We called him 6 months later. He told us to F off. Called him 6 months later again, and ended up getting under contract. So just goes to show, like, people who are on the DNC list still could use our help. And so with agents, I try to teach them to just market the same lists that wholesalers and investors are marketing to, because wholesalers and investors can only offer so much, whereas an agent, you can offer them essentially 100% of retail. And so I teach my agent clients to give them a cash offer and show them all the benefits of a cash offer. Like, you can settle within 60 days, sell the house as is. There's no inspection, no financing contingencies, and no appraisal contingencies. And then show them that, okay, I can also list your property for X amount. You just might have to like clean it out, declutter, put in, a little bit of work to get it list ready. And just kind of make it so it's a this or a that rather than like a yes or a no.
Perfect. And then if they can't take it down, they're going to be able to talk to somebody like Mike, Aaron, yourself, or myself, where we get those properties where no matter what, they're just not going to be able to put it on the MLS because it's not MLS ready. And then now you have a relationship with a local flipper who's doing business. You can ask for the listing on the backside, and you've created a relationship on the buy and on the sell. The reason I ask is like I said, we have a lot of new guys in the group that are becoming licensed. And I think this is a good way for them to marry what they want to do eventually with what they're going to do now. And they can learn the business while they're getting listings and while they're meeting flippers, wholesalers, contractors, stuff like that. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the DNC list, I don't know the origins of it, but I'm assuming once cold calling started to become more prevalent, the government came up with a way for people to put their names and numbers on a do not call list. Again, it's not super accurate. And unfortunately, even after you're on the do not call list, you're still going to get calls from companies. There are people who are quote unquote known litigators who are on the DNC list and will actually wait for someone to call them, who's a cold caller, get all their information, and just send that information over to their lawyers, and they sue them for X amount of money. Most time those lawsuits don't go to court. They end up settling, and that's pretty much all they do. It's just they know how to game the system, and they're
dirtbags.
Yep.
Wouldn't it be easier to just say, hey, don't call me? I mean, just in case you've never marketed before, I don't care what method you do, texting, calling, mailing, people will lose their mind on you. Like I used to do, like this one's the vitamin shop here. And it's like, I would do mailers like this, and they will call you and absolutely tear you a new one because you sent them a mailer, just like as if you were Domino's Pizza. I will never understand people, but if the fire service has taught me anything, it just proof I never will understand people. So just know you're going to get an earful one way or the other, whether they're on the do not call list, the do not mail list, the just pain in the ass list. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, it's at that point, it's more about them than it is about anything you're doing. Their life sucks, and they just want somebody to take it out on.
They want yours to suck too. Yeah,
exactly.
Exactly.
So the one you just did in Pasadena, one of the things I remember is that you use private money to fund that one, correct?
Yeah, so I used a hard money lender to actually purchase property, and then I used a private lender for the closing costs and rehab costs.
So let's bring this all back around and we're just going to give this on a silver platter to somebody. So we used Pinpoint Skip, pull the list, market to that list, whether it be calling, mailers, door hangers, or cold call. Did I say that one? Whatever. The 4 primary ones. You got a hold of them, decide to sell it to you. You then take that property and you go to, did you use hard money bankers?
No, I used a guy, Sean Magner, Monument
Sean.
City Capital.
Yeah, Sean's
dude.
great.
Good.
So you went to Sean.
Sean is, he was at the second LFG meeting I went to. Yeah.
So
Good
Sean, also good reputation. We all know him. He's just a good dude. Another Baltimore guy. You go to him, say, hey, Sean, I need some money. I'm going to buy this property. He says, okay, I'll give you this much money for this interest rate, these points. You say, okay, I'm going to take this property, get it under contract, and then you go and get private money from somebody else to rehab the property. Now it's rehabbed, and you turn around and sell it for a profit. Like, this is on a silver platter how you run a business. This is it. Like, it's not as complex as a lot of people think it is. This is just, okay, I take this piece, I put it here, I take this piece, I put it here, I take this piece, I put it here, and now I've made X amount of dollars projected on this property. The only thing you don't know, well, actually, the only thing that you're not 100% sure of right now is what are the rates going to be? What's the after repair value? So you can use your data points for the current sales to get that. But we've had such rate changes that it might not be what it used to be. Like, there's a lot more lowball offers going on right now because the rates are so high. They're 2 or 3 times higher than what they were 2 years ago. So like this is real estate investing on a silver platter. And say you don't want to do real estate investing. So I know guys in the fire department, what they would do is probate, and they would go after the cars. So instead of doing the real estate, they would do probate, find out who has it, and see what kind of cars they had, and they would buy the cars from them and flip the cars. So is that another option? Yeah. Do they have jewelry and gold that they want to sell? Yeah. A buddy of mine who runs a gun shop about 20 minutes from here, he gets a lot of deals on gun stuff, ammunition, guns, whatever they have in the house the family doesn't want to deal with. They'll take that and then they'll go market to the family and say, hey, I'll buy all the guns that you have for X amount of dollars, brings them into a shop, and then he resells them. So like this, it doesn't stop with real estate. It stops with whatever your creativity can come up with, whether it be guns or cars or gold and jewelry or real estate, whatever it might be. And this is a good way to get that information combined into one little kit and caboodle.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. You don't overcomplicate it. My kid just came in the room, so got to apologize. He wants to make a special guest appearance here. So I mean, it's pretty much like why we do what we do, right? So like, I used to work 9 to 5, and so I didn't really, get to spend much time with my kids. But I think real estate investing, it's a game changer. Like especially for for guys or families, you get to spend more time with your kids. You get have more experiences with your kids that you wouldn't necessarily get to have if you had a 9 to 5 that was more regular. So if anything, think about your legacy and what you can accomplish with just by doing something like this.
And everybody on this podcast has young kids, and I know Faisal just had a young one recently as well, right?
Yeah, we got, this guy, he's 3, and then the other one is 11 months old.
Yeah, so like Mike's got young kids, Sal's got young kids, and like now being a father, I know like how important it is to have the free time to spend with the kid and see them grow. Like me and my wife were sitting down earlier, and she was showing me pictures of when 3-4 months ago when he was born versus now, where it's like, oh my God, like he has features, he's tracking his, these are things that are important to me. That's like you have to come out and spend time with your family, and these are things you're going to miss if you're not there for a month or 2 or you're working on properties. I mean, Mike's been preaching this to me for years.
Yeah, but on the flip side of that coin, it's also your responsibility to be a provider and learn shit like this. Like, don't sit there and wait for. I cannot stand the people. Oh, the department didn't give me a raise or this, that, or the other thing. Like, hey man, you're in the land of opportunity. Like, go out there and make it happen. Like this information is literally free. You can, between YouTube, podcast, not necessarily this one, but if you want to be successful, listen to this one. Like this information is out there. You just have to go out and do it. Like you can sit there and learn all this shit, but if you don't implement it, worthless. And like, you want to spend time with your family. You want to keep a roof over their head. You want to provide, like go out and learn this stuff and then implement it. Like like Faisal just sit there and broke down literally how you can, for $100, go buy some information to then implement, to execute, and hopefully change the trajectory of what your income or your legacy or your family tree or whatever you want to talk about is. Like, just go out and do it too. So it's like, man, it's right there. I wish this service was here 10 years ago, because who knows? I probably would have been too dumb to take advantage of it. But anyways,
I want to ask all of you, like, do you plan on teaching your kids to do this type of stuff when they get older?
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. I think I said it, especially depending on the kid. Like my son, I think he would thrive in something like this. I don't think he really necessarily digs traditional schooling, but he's smart and he has a lot of skills. So is that me?
Dad.
I'm afraid to ask.
Dad.
Yeah, buddy, go. It's not me.
It's all good.
So yeah, I mean, with my kids, like I take them to the properties before and after to kind of show them. I don't know, buddy. To show them, like, you know, what a property looks like, you know, before we rehab it and then afterwards. But I don't know how much is actually like sinking in or not. Hey, buddy.
You'd be surprised, man. They pick up on way more than I thought. You know, like I used to take my oldest son, to properties, like especially when I was flipping them, and he still remembers, like, hey Dad, that's the Scooby-Doo bathroom house. Like, 'cause I bought this house that had Scooby-Doo painted on the wall of the bathroom, like, and I never like consciously pointed a lot of this out. So like they pick up just by proximity. So even though many days I feel like an epic failure as a father, because it's like, is anything sinking in? Are you on this planet? Like, what are you doing? I think they pick up a lot more than we probably think, even though it may not be readily apparent. So my opinion or answer to that, Aaron, is absolutely. And it's my intent to help both of my boys purchase their first property or like house, as long as it has some sort of investing component to it, whatever that may be, like live and flip or house hack or a small multi, something to where it at least by forcing them plant some sort of seed about, wow, I can take my living expense and make it virtually zero if I just do this, or this. So, yeah, I'm just trying to provide that example daily. So I guess therefore teach it.
All right, I'm playing devil's advocate here. How do you plan on like teaching your kids about real estate investing?
So far, I've had them pick the name for the LLC that the rentals are all in. So it was their choice for the LLC. I've taken them to projects. I've shown them like marketing. I've shown them all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, I just kind of do it. And the kids laugh when they get in my car because I'm always listening to podcasts. And they're like, oh, can't we just listen to music? I'm like, yeah, we can after this is over. But like, it's like Mike mentioned earlier, I just try to tell them there's so much free information out there. Anything you want to learn, you can learn. And I try to show them too, like the benefits of what all this does. Like Aaron mentioned, we get to be home all the time. We get to go on vacations. We get to do a lot of this stuff that's funded by real estate investing. And I think if you see the reward, even though it is hard work and stressful sometimes, I think it becomes more enticing. And then if they feel like they're involved in the process, I think they're going to learn on their own.
So for me, like I have a distinct memory of when I was a kid, and I was probably like 8 or 9 years old, with my dad working on properties. So for me, like at the time, I'm like, this is child slave labor. This is bullshit. But now I'm like, okay, you know, now it's sinking in. Like we were trying to build something to make money, and I get it to, you know, sell for a profit. So for me, like I'll retire in 5 years when my son is about 5 years old. So when I'm out of the fire department, I'll probably be doing something in real estate somewhere on the Eastern Shore, probably. And I'll probably have him with me teaching him, okay, this is what we do to build or make or create or break, whatever it might be. So to me, like those kind of things create a memory because there's an emotional response with it. So it creates a memory. And I think that's important for kids. So for me, I'm going to have him around and just show him like, let's do this. And this is why we're doing this. This is make sure they understand it. Me at 5, 6, 7 years old, they're not going to get it. But once they start getting into that like teenage years or tween years, I think they're going to start like, okay, if I do this, then I can, you know, make a profit on this, whether it be selling baseball cards or bubble gum like we did back in the, you know, 80s and 90s, or selling real estate. And for me, I think it's important to expose them to some things like that so they see what the real world is not all unicorns and rainbows.
Yeah. And I know people get tired of hearing me talk about the lighthouse thing, but I literally it's just a part of what I talk about and do. And I think my kids hopefully will pick up on that. But specifically my oldest one, I have told this story before where to get him involved, I had a multi-unit building where it had a coin-operated washer and dryer. And I used to let him, to try and like make the correlation, like these make us money, I would let him bring the freezer bag and empty the quarters out of the washing machine. And we called it piggy food because he had literally a big piggy bank, and he would get the quarters and then feed the pig. Right. So that was kind of like our thing. Well, the one time we went there and somebody had broken and stolen all the money, and I just looked over and he was crying. And I was like, this is an excellent lesson. Like, you just got a real good education on the world is not puppy dogs and rainbows. And like, so it might sound really twisted. I'm probably gonna get like some hate mail now, but like that was worth a freezer bag full of quarters for what that probably taught him. And, but there were numerous times he went there and got plenty of quarters. So let's just be clear. So it's one of those things like that's going to be a memory, probably, like hopefully not a bad one, but like that is an education by default, by proximity, whatever you want to call it. So that's how I intend to keep teaching them outside of yes, this is how we go on vacation, right? This is why, daddy's not working overtime every single day, like, because I've been building a business for 10 years, dealing with the punches as they come in. Like, so if anything, man, I just want to like teach my kids, like, this is what happens whenever you actually take a little risk, take a little bet on yourself, and like just go out there and deal with what the world throws at you, and like just become resourceful and resilient, and just don't friggin' quit. Like, that's what I really want to teach them. Not necessarily that real estate is the way. It's my way, but like for them, I just want to teach them like, hey, I took a little bit of a bet on myself and I just didn't give up. So if I can teach them that, that's what I really want to teach them.
So do you think it's more, this is for Faisal, do you think it's healthier to be at home doing this stuff, teaching your kids, or a 9-to-5 that you were doing, like driving to DC from Baltimore, hour each way every day?
I mean, personally, real estate has allowed me to like just create the life that I want, right? So like, I'm not like crushing it and doing like 10 deals, 20 deals a month or anything like that, but I'm doing like, 10 flips a year and then wholesaling the rest. Personally, I think not having to spend 3 hours in a car every day is, my quality of life is so much better. And then getting to take my kid to school and pick him up every day. And then, my 10-month-old or 11-month-old, like I get to hang out with him and, just see him grow. And, I don't know, it's not like I miss the milestones, like, when I'm in my car at work. So, I don't know, real estate investing is giving me a life beyond my dreams. And I'm still in the infancy of my business. So I'm looking forward to seeing, where I go with it and what I create in the future. Just bringing my family along with me.
How long did it take you to replace your 9-to-5 for income?
I mean, when I got fired, I didn't really have a choice, right? And so I would say I got fired. I had that nest egg that I was sitting on. I told my wife, like, give me 6 to 8 months to figure it out. I got fired in January. And I think by the end of that summer, I was steadily making enough money to replace the job, and that's on.
That's huge, man. So this is in 2018, right?
So no, this was beginning of 21. Was when I got fired. 21,
you got fired during COVID. You replaced it within 6 to 8 months, and then you've grown it ever since. So now you're doing the flips, the wholesales, the data mining, and everything else. So like this is only just 2 years. It's 2.5 years out, and it's like, okay, now you're succeeding and doing better. It's like, yeah, screw you and fire me, you MFers.
Exactly. And I mean, the way I saw it was just as risky to go find another job as it was to work for myself.
Because worst case, you can go bet on yourself. If it doesn't work out, you can still go with your skill set and get another job back. And I think that's the big thing too. Like Tommy, like we were talking about Tommy earlier, he had to replace his income, and it took a year or less, right? And no, I think it was a year to the day. He said, I think it took him a year to the day, and he replaced his income, and then he was like, "Oh, holy crap! Now I'm free," because he's already done it. So that's really rad to hear that you did it that fast. It's impressive.
Yeah, and I mean, I think by like that year marker, I was working probably like 10 to 15 hours in my business, and so it afforded me the opportunity to go start Pinpoint Skip, because there's plenty of opportunities in this real estate business that doesn't necessarily just have to do with real estate. Like I have friends that started like construction companies and flooring companies, roofing companies, stuff like that. And there's just so many
dumpster companies.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's like no shortage of anything, drone video companies. Like,
yeah. Whereas if you're working 40 hours a week for someone else, like you don't have that affordability, basically just your mental capacity alone. It's just, tied into your job. Yeah.
I think a lot of your reputation precedes you too. So like when somebody asks, like, I need to skip trace whatever to find something, and people will drop your name because it's like you've now built a reputation for yourself, like as the go-to guy. Oh, I know somebody. And I always say this when I was growing up: be the person where it's like, oh, I know somebody. I know Faisal, or I know Tyler, I know Mike. So when they have questions like, oh, I know somebody, I know this person. As long as you're the go-to guy, you're not going to have any shortage of people coming to you for whether it be advice or buying your proprietary data entry, data analysis stuff. Like reputation is going to precede you regardless, especially because we're in a very niche market and it's a very muddy, incestual waters because we all know each other. Like we're separated by like 2 people max in this market if you're active. So for you, like, do you have anybody who does data analysis? Do you have somebody who does skip tracing? Do you have somebody who builds whatever? Like, oh yeah, I've got this guy over here. His reputation precedes him. And then when they do get the data pull from you, they're like, oh my god, like this is impressive. Like this is a lot of information, and that's good. Like that's good that we all have kind of built a reputation for ourselves as the go-to person for whatever niche it might be. Like if I have questions about mortgages, then I'm going to Tyler. If I have questions about like how do I market, I'm going to go to Mike. If I have questions about how to do a skip trace, I'm going to go to Faisal. So like this is where you got networking is important because you can build your relationships and your network is your net wealth. And that's important to have. If you don't and you want to keep to yourself, you're not going to go as far as you think you are, like trying to take on the world. You're better off having a team.
Yeah, 100%. It's the other cheesy quotes, like if you want to go far, go together. If you want to go fast, go alone type thing. It's the same concept. So I know we're coming up on time. So Faisal, like where do you see Pinpoint Skip over the next 12 months? Is that something you're, I would assume, looking to continue to grow? And what's your vision for that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like 90 to 95% of my business is referral based. And so going to continue growing it, probably start throwing some money at ads here soon. And just being able to add value and help as many people as I can, honestly, because although I make a lot more money in real estate, flipping houses and stuff like that, I get a lot more value from helping other investors find deals because I understand the mindset of an investor and how hard it is, especially starting off, how hard it is to find a deal. And so when I have a client that gets a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 deal off of an 8-cent record, it's a lot more rewarding for me than if I'm making that $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 myself.
Well, it's also going to lead to a lot of opportunity. Look at the batch crew out in Arizona. Like that created a ton of opportunity because they focused on like the data is king. Like, and that then you become, like Aaron said, you become the person, and then it's just going to open so many doors for you. Well, cool, man. So one question I wrote down earlier, and we kind of hit it, but if you had somebody listening has $1,000, what would you do to get started? If you know what you know now, you were just getting started, you got $1,000 and a good attitude, how are you getting into real estate?
I would pull a list of 2,500 records. What is that, like $200? And then I'd text them, just through my phone. I'd call them. I'd send handwritten cards, mailers. And if it's somebody that's in your neighborhood, go door knock. You'll easily be able to take that $1,000, turn it into $5,000, $10,000 on your first assignment fee, and then just go to different RIAs and network with people who are active in the business and find out how you can add value to them and see what they're looking for and just reverse engineer the process. So if you know people are looking for this type of house in this neighborhood, start calling those people. And you already, I think like one of the biggest fears people was like, well, if I get a deal, like who's going to buy it? Well, if you already network with a buyer, it won't be a problem. But I always tell people, like, just get the deal. And if it's an actual deal, like you're not going to have trouble finding the buyer.
Mike runs was the I-81 real estate meetup group.
Yeah.
And I run the Prince George's County real estate investing group. And it's like, there's always people looking for, they're always posting, oh, I've got buyers all over whatever area, send me your deals. But I'm like, that doesn't work, man. Like all you're doing is doing email grabs.
Yep.
So there's no shortage of buyers, but there's usually a shortage of deals.
Always.
If you got the deal, trust me, you're going to get a pretty good network built around you. If you're the guy that consistently has a deal and whatever that looks like, one a month, one a week, doesn't matter. If they know, hey, Faisal's got the deals, Faisal's building a valuable network versus if you're just collecting email addresses, but you have no deals and you're just trying to JV whatever or pull stuff off Investor Lift and add 10 grand to it. Guess what, man? You can get cut out of the food chain real fast because you're not providing any value. Where, well, cool, man, $1,000, like that's, think about it, guys. That's like maybe an overtime shift or, selling some of your kids' Christmas presents out the back door or whatever it is. Like get a couple bucks, sell some stuff on Facebook Marketplace and bankroll it into something that's actually going to feed you. So that's all I got, man. Thank you. This is super good. I'm definitely going to be checking out your website because I'm not necessarily looking to get back into the whole marketing side of it, but I might have a couple lists I need to pull for some specific things. So I will be reaching out.
Sounds good, man. And you mentioned that you do storage stuff. If you reach out to us directly at info@pinpointskip.com, we can get commercial stuff for you too. And then anyone looking to connect with me, I am extremely available to my clients. So I bend over backwards to make sure all my clients are successful. So the more successful you are, the more data you'll buy and the more you'll refer people to me. So reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, and you can find us at pinpointskip.com.
I know a guy. His name's Faisal Morsi. Thanks for hopping on and spending an hour with us, guys.
Appreciate you having me.
Thank you.